So, even if a teacher wants to focus on a much more in-depth learning, it is really a struggle on their part when there are too many students to handle and with such a limited time.
But some others, they buy their grades.
So it's not really a matter of lack of effort, but rather it's lack of capacity.
Shara, mga kabarkada! Today we're going to tackle about something new, something different, and something you were afraid of. I am your host, Rizal Grace Landa, together with my co-host,
Between Peace and Borio.
So let's start it simple, partner. You get high grade, let's say 95. People congratulate you, your parents are proud of you, and the school recognizes you.
But here's the real question. Do you understand what you studied?
Well, the question is, lately that gap between the grades and actual learning is getting harder to ignore.
Yes, kapartner, tama ka. But this isn't just opinion.
Yeah.
International assessments like PISA that we've taken last year shows that Filipino students are actually struggling in math, Filipino, and science, even while many are passing in school.
So today we're not here to impress, but we're here to be honest. Today we've invited three senior high school students, starting off with Philistine Sagon, Eunice Kawaling, and lastly Kurt Serdan. They are here to talk about their experiences in their school, about
High grades, low learning, the truth behind the education system. So let's go straight to the point. No pressure, Kurt, ha? Do you actually feel like you're learning in school?
If I'm going to be completely honest, not consistently. Most of the time, I retain what I learn, I understand it. But the other times, I really don't understand what I'm learning. Though I do achieve high grades, high tests on marks, near perfect, when my classmates ask me for help explaining the topic in simple terms or in my own words, I usually hit a dead end. And I realize something. We don't always study to learn. We study to survive our monthly assessments, where our grades are held on a pedestal that hold no actual meaning. We try to predict what will come out. We memorize the structure of tests and repeat patterns. And from what I've read, this connects to a term which is short-term memory learning, where you can perform well temporarily, but without deeper understanding or without deeper processing, the knowledge doesn't stay. That's exactly what happens after every exam, where the information fades almost immediately.
so you're saying that the system recall not to understand?
Yes.
So what about you, Mr. Sagan?
Well, for me, learning definitely exists, but it's really surface level, you know. Like we understand just enough to pass, but not enough to apply it in our daily lives.
So, what do you mean by that?
Like let's say we may be good at solving problems in exams, but if the same problem is given to us in a different angle or in a different perspective, that's where we struggle.
So it's not just a feeling, no, it's backed by data.
Yes, I agree. It's really very dependent on rote memorization.
Lastly, what about you, Miss Kawaling?
So for me, it's honestly frustrating because I actually try, I listen during discussions, I take notes, and I review before the exam. But everything just disappears. And it feels like nothing stays. It's like you go through a cycle, you prepare, you perform, and everything resets. But I think part of that is because everything feels rushed. There's always a next topic, a next deadline, a next requirement. There's no really time to really process what you learn. Um, Another thing is sometimes I don't ask questions, even when I don't understand. Not because I don't care, but I feel like I might slow the class down Or maybe I'm the only one who's confused. So I just stay quiet and I hope I figure it out later. But most of the time, I don't.
So, Miss Eunice, what do you mean by that?
Sometimes maybe teachers might get mad because they think that we don't really listen to their discussion. So that's why.
And sometimes they actually get mad, no, and it's traumatizing.
Yes.
Partner as a student, that's so hard. Really, if you wanna ask some question, but the fear in your
I
heart.
feel it.
Oh my God, partner, I feel it also.
We are on segment number 2. What really happens inside a classroom?
Can you guys walk us through your experiences in the normal class?
I'll begin. So, in a typical normal class, most of the time, the teacher comes in holding a laptop and sets a projector. After that, the teacher presents the slides, talks about the key points but doesn't explain further, and then moves on very quickly. They do not discuss or delve deeper into the key points that makes the classes feel very rushed and very missing, like murag na ikulangan bitaw.
And that pacing is not random, and it's usually influenced by our curriculum because teachers are required to cover a large amount of material within such limited time, and of course, naturally, it leads to a lack of depth to compromise for completion because research suggests in the Philippines points out the structural issues like the class sizes, some class sizes can reach up to 40 to 50 students, and the same research show that higher student-teacher ratios are linked to a lower performance, especially in the reading comprehension. So, even if a teacher wants to focus on a much more in-depth learning, it is really a struggle on their part when there are too many students to handle and with such a limited time.
And from the student side, you feel that pressure, the lesson won't slow down for you. So instead of understanding, you just keep trying to keep up.
Now we're going to hop in on segment 3. The system is designed this way.
So at this point, partner, no, it doesn't sound like the student's problem anymore. It feels like it's something deeper, something bigger, something about the system itself.
Yeah, let's go to that. What is actually wrong with the system?
Well, I would like to answer your question, but before that, let me ask you guys something first. Have you both heard of grade inflation?
Yeah, I've encountered that one. I've already heard.
For me, I haven't.
Well, let me tell you guys. There's a research out there that indicates that grades have risen over a time, but without a corresponding increase in the actual human capacity or knowledge. This is a phenomenon which I mentioned earlier, a grade inflation. Because nowadays, higher grades are leniently given to students as an act of compassion, but that compassion is usually a cover up because there's a study in Philippine higher education that reveals that compassionate grading is used by instructors to support the students who are facing challenges. These challenges might be financial struggles, their even their academic and their learning capacity, which this creates an illusion of success. And additionally, there's also something called the incentives for easier grading. Why this is correlates to the system is that non-tenured faculty or those staff which does not have an official position in the faculty yet or those facing an intense competition for student enrollment may inflate grades to secure high student evaluations, ensure contract renewals, and to avoid student complaints. The reason why they do this is because they want to protect their job security and they want to have an official position in the office.
That's pretty lengthy, no? But We've got it covered. Yeah, nasa yung point.
Yeah, you have a good point on that one, Mr.
Let's
Sagus.
ask Mr. Surdanao.
Yes, I completely agree with Mr. Sagon because you can actually feel that in real life. Grades are not just numbers. When lessons build on previous topics, you didn't, and the previous topics where you don't fully understand the lessons, everything becomes much harder. Where you are trying to learn new skill, where your foundation is still at the very bottom. But the system doesn't really stop. It doesn't really cater to those struggling students. It just keeps moving forward. So instead of trying to master something, you just adjust. You learn how to cope with it and you learn how to pass, despite not understanding the lessons well.
And I think that where it becomes dangerous. Because when you're constantly moving forward without fully understanding the lessons, you don't even realize how much knowledge you are actually missing along the way. Everything feels fine on the surface, but you pass your quizzes, you get high grades, and move up to the next level without any problems. So naturally, you are starting telling yourself, okay, I passed. I'm doing fine. It gives you a sense of comfort, like you are on the right track. But in reality, those grades doesn't always reflect what you truly know or understand. Sometimes that only show that you were able to memorize through information to not get by, not that you deeply lesson I learned the lesson and think when the problem slowly builds up because as lesson become more advanced that depend on basic that you were supposed to understand before. If those foundations are weak, everything becomes harder. You might start feeling confused, lost, or stressed, or pressure to keep up, even if you don't fully understand what's happening anymore.
Great point.
You know, partner, that's so hard, no? You're there not to study, but to pass. You're not there not to learn.
Because you're scared not being on top or not being part of the honors list.
Oh my God,
It's
partner.
all about grades
Yes,
now.
I can feel the pressure, partner.
And it's so scary, guys, because we only learn just to pass, but not actually learning what we really need to.
Yeah, you don't have the knowledge. Yeah, although you have the grade, but the knowledge, it's gone. Like,
Yes.
that's so hard, partner.
Even simple departments abbreviation, we can't answer it.
Yes.
What's the meaning of dollar?
Mm,
I don't know.
we don't know.
That's the problem.
See, you can see the problem. Many students has an average of 95%, but
There's no actually
Some
learning.
of them are actually with highest honors, no? And
with highest honors, but don't know the abbreviation of some departments.
may pinapalinggan ka ba?
But some others, they buy their
Grades. Yeah. Now, we are on segment number 4. Teachers are also stuck in the system.
Let's talk about teachers, guys, because a lot of people, a lot of students are immediately pointing at them. So now let me ask you guys a question. Are they really a part of a problem?
Well, I would like to answer that question because while teachers are a part of the situation, they are not necessarily the entire cause of the problem. It's because the inability to provide quality education is often linked to teachers that are instructing subjects that are outside their specialization. This mismatch phenomenon has a research here in the Philippines that highlighted that over 60% of high school teachers are handling subjects that are outside their college specialization. What this means is that they're handling subjects that are outside of what they learned or enrolled in while they were in college, which of course this hinders the delivery of high quality and in-depth education. And with this weekend content knowledge, there's a study out there that shows that when teachers lack this deep content knowledge in their taught subjects, they rely mostly more on rote memorization rather than fostering critical thinking skills, which then this time leads to a low level education despite students getting high grades.
Makes sense because we can relate to that. No, kay, it happens mostly sa public high schools. when a math teacher teaches MAPI subject, it would ruin the
could
class.
ruin-
Hey, I remember in my grade 8, I think we've danced into the math subject. Like, what's the connect of the dance into the math? Can you see the difference between that math subject and to the math?
Yes.
Yes.
Most of the
Difference.
teachers who teach outside their specialization
Yeah.
often end up teaching nonsense.
Yes.
And that's a
Can
hard
agree.
partner, no? That's
Even
really
now, we're
hard.
experiencing it. Just different schools, though.
Yes.
Oops.
Instead
Okay,
of
let's-
teaching it to us deeper, they only read it, so we don't really learn it. You know? Yes.
May pinapatamaan. Okay, so let's ask Miss Eunice about her opinion.
So you can really actually see that in class, there are teachers who are trying to explain things better, who wants discussions, who want student to understand the lessons. But you can also see that they are tired. And when a teacher is tired, the lesson becomes more about finishing than teaching it.
And I'd like to add on to that. Sometimes the students interpret that. They think that the teacher doesn't care, but in reality, the teacher are just overloaded. So it's not really a matter of lack of effort, but rather it's lack of capacity.
That makes sense.
True, because some teachers, though they have this funds for materials in classrooms, nasa like, what do you call this? Budget for bond papers, for any of those printing materials. But most of them end up spending their own money and they end up like, oh my god, magasto na sad ko ani, yun di ba rin ako magamit ng ano, yung nga namumutang bitaw. Because, what's the reason? Corruption.
So, partner, no, there's really two sides of the story. So, as you can see, we're bringing here the two sides of the story. So, now, partner, what's your thoughts about that one?
Let's not just add the corruption part because it's outside of our
That's
That's
scope.
not our topic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, thank you for those answers, guests.
Now, we're on a segment 5 on students adopt, but at a cost.
Now, let's look at this on the other side of the story. Are students also the problem? Let me ask you first, Miss Eunice.
Yes, and I think it's hard to admit, but it's true. We adapt to a system that rewards passing. We focus on passing instead. We memorize our we memorize instead of understanding. We rely on patterns, reviewers, and group answers. But not because we are lazy, but instead it works for us.
That's true, and over time, it becomes part of our culture and it becomes normal. We stop asking ourselves, do I really understand this lesson? Do I really understand this subject? And instead, we ask, will this come out in the exam? This mindset changes everything. Because once your goal is just to pass, you stop pushing yourself to go deeper. Because as we all know, the death of your own ambition is satisfaction.
Yes, and that long-term effect is already visible. Because, for example, data from literacy studies in the Philippines show that while a high percentage of people can read and write, a much smaller percentage can actually comprehend and fully, deeply understand what they read and wrote at a functional level. That gap between basic ability and deeper understanding reflects the same issue we're talking about: surface learning versus real learning. And it's not just entirely an academic issue, it really affects how people think, solve problems, and make decisions in the real life.
So, in a way, we are not just adapting, we're slowly lowering our standards.
That's the part of people don't talk about.
Can I ask Mr. Sagon? Can you please elaborate more on surface learning versus real learning?
Well, let me give you a scenario, because this scenario can also be seen in our in classrooms. Because when we talk about service learning, students nowadays just learn enough to pass. But when we talk about fully learning, you not only you learn to pass, but you also learn how you can apply it in your daily living.
So before we go on to the solution, may I ask you guys a question first? What mode of learning suits for you or like really has a change for you, functions for you?
Fits you well.
Yeah. Is it self-learning, modular learning?
Online,
Yeah. Visuals?
face to face.
I'll answer it first. For me, it really depends on the subject because there are teachers who can't really explain well. So, type of learning that works for me is self-learning, where I just look at the hands-out they gives to them and try to understand it in my own way. Because most of the time, the teachers that teach those subjects don't actually know how to explain it or explain it wrong. As for the teachers that do actually know how to explain it, I would prefer that I learn face to face so that I can approach them more conveniently, and I can also ask them questions with visualizations right in front of them.
Okay.
You had
What
really a
about-
good point on there.
What about you, Miss Ines? What suits you? Self-learning, group learning, face-to-face?
Online.
I prefer, I guess, group like group learning,
study.
group
Oh,
study. Because since I was in elementary, I was always doing that, so that's why it really suits to me instead of self-learning, because I'm not really sure what I've learned, so that's why I prefer someone is teaching me, or we study together.
What about you,
Well,
Mr. Sam?
as for me, I agree with Kurt's statement. It really overall depends on the teachers and what they teach. But personally, I learn the best when self-learning, but at the same time, we are still students. We have that gap that only seasoned teachers can address. So that's why while self-learning can be efficient, um, it's really preferable to ask the right teachers in that right field of area that they actually have a background knowledge or they have the deep content knowledge in that topic or in that field of area.
You had
Okay, so last question. Para sa may makahelp sa other students, what self-learning apps or websites do you use in studying, Mr. Kurt?
For me, it really depends on the subjects. Like for memorization or active recall that requires memorization, I use Gizmo, I use Anki Droid, and many other apps that really help in active recall. As for problem-based subjects such as mathematics or physics, or maybe even learning about the culture of another part or another group, I typically use Google to search or use YouTube to expand my knowledge on those topics that I'm interested in.
Okay. What
Looks
about
like you're really good at that, huh?
what
About-
about you, Miss Eunice?
I only use Gizmo and YouTube. That's only two apps that I only use for studying, but mostly only group study.
Hmm.
Well, as for me, I don't really have that fixed particular studying apps, but usually when I encounter like an obstacle which I don't understand this topic, usually I just search in the Google or search in YouTube because nowadays the internet really has that. They really have everything, and even if those the thing you're searching for does not exist, I always have my parents that I can always ask them questions about.
Great answers, guys.
So, as you can see, partner, no, digital technology is already eating us.
Yeah,
Can you see
yeah.
that? Okay.
But most of the students usually use generative AIs.
Mm-hmm.
Agree.
Okay, so we're getting to the last segment now, segment number 6. What needs to change?
So, guys, now, what do you think needs to be changed in the system?
Well, there should be a continuous professional development. programs that focuses on higher order thinking skills or HOTS and questioning techniques have studies that show that it helps teachers move beyond simple rote memorization, which this leads to a more rigorous and a more authentic grading among the students.
So since you've mentioned HOTS, because it's common nowadays to use LOTS instead of HOTS, it is really right to use HOTS because HOTS focuses on creating, evaluating, and analyzing. LOTS, on the other hand, focuses more on applying, understanding, and remembering. Yeah. So what
And
about you, Miss Eunice?
oh, for me, the system also needs to be changed or fixed. How teachers are assigned, especially when they teach subjects outside their specialization. In the Philippines, around 43% teachers handle subjects that are not trained in. So, according to the Philippines Institution for Development Studies, this lowers teaching quality and affects student learning. So even if student pass, their understanding is often weak because the teaching isn't itself is not strong.
Adding on to Mr. Sagon's statement on HOTS, higher order thinking skills such as analyzing, evaluating, and creation are ranked above simple active recall, meaning that deeper learning happens when students learn to apply the knowledge, not just memorize it. Because think about it, theory can only come so far, and you can only learn when you actually know how to do it yourself.
Okay, thank you for your answers, guys.
So that concludes our discussion for today. Thank you so much to our dear guest. We've really learned a lot, especially on sharing your experiences. Thank you so much for that because you made our viewers realize what is the happenings or the true happenings behind the classroom activities, behind the teaching of their teachers. And also, it is important because they always say, ang kabataan ay ang pag-asa ng bayan.
Thank you so much, guys. Students are not failing, they're passing.
But passing doesn't always mean learning.
And if nothing changes,
We will continue producing students who succeed only on paper
but struggle in real life. Thank you so much for watching our podcast, guys. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.
Bye!